we've taken to the road. We're on a mission to interview successful entrepreneurs. 90% of startups fail, and we want to help change those stats. First stop, London, with Viktor on his inspiring journey from CrowdCube investor to becoming FreeTrade CMO. Am I right or wrong by saying this, that before you worked with FreeTrade, that you invested in them on crowdfunding, and you were one of the highest to invest on crowdfunding, and they called you in on the strength of that, and was that your plan to get an interview that way?
Your mythological knowledge is spot on. Yeah, do you want the whole story, like how it happened?
Yeah, because it's different.
So, it's a little bit different. So before I moved to London, I lived all over, most of the time in Dublin. Love it, and
our hometown.
Yeah, exactly. And after that, I lived in Hong Kong. I lived in Munich, and in the end, my girlfriend and I moved here to London because she joined Google again, and I was here a little bit jobless, and I was like, I spotted this advertisement on the tube about CrowdCube, and I thought to myself, this is fantastic. I can be an angel investor. I don't have to have £500,000. I don't have to have my own solicitor, my own deal flow, and all that. So I went and I invested into the very first crowdfunding round of Monzo and the very first crowdfunding round of Revolute. Okay. And my third investment was FreeTrade. So FreeTrade popped up on my CrowdCube feed, and I was like, this is really interesting. I really want this product. Because I moved here, I wanted to open my investment account, and I learned that ISA is like a really good thing. It was all new to me. And I was like, there is like a really good app locally, without any like impediments, like high fees and all that. There was nothing. And then I saw FreeTrade on CrowdCube, and I was like, how much can I invest? So I looked at my bank account, like, how much I can invest. I'm like, I just moved from Hong Kong. I have a little bit of money in Hong Kong, let me like convert it, transfer-wise it and all that stuff. And then I ended up investing £3,000, which is as much as I could like dispose at that point. And I was left with £15. Thankfully, it was only a pledge. So CrowdCube did not take all of the money. And I was the first investor who was not a friend or family and invested more than £1,000, so a significant amount.
Yeah.
And then
well,
definitely Adam either reached out to me or I reached out to him. I wanted to shake his hands. I mean, this dude started practically a stockbroker, and we met up at the WeWork where he was based at that point, and I really liked his vision. I was like really impressed, because very often you see like startup founders taking on a problem and they don't really appreciate how big the problem is.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's useful, because if you fully know the extent of the problem, probably you are like, this is too big. The transportation industry is never going to be like disrupted, and if you don't appreciate that, you have Uber and stuff like that. But he was really prepared, so I was really impressed. And after a couple of months, I sent him an email that, hey, I've been in growth marketing for a couple of years. Maybe could you give me an interview and all that stuff. So I had an interview and I passed the bar and I joined him.
And now you're what? You're head of growth, CMO?
I joined as head of growth, and he promoted me to CMO and co-founder.
Wow, congratulations. That's the best story about getting into a business. But you are right about the likes of the undertaking of FreeTrade is massive.
Yeah.
To create a stock market that for anybody that anybody can open is such a big undertaking, right? What is it like being a CMO for a business that is super competitive? Obviously, Revolute, opened up there. You can invest in shares in Revolute now, and obviously they have a big user base. What's it like being the CMO of FreeTrade and trying to grow that business with these competitors that are kind of nipping at your heels and there's things going on?
Yeah, definitely. It's an extremely competitive space right now. The whole category kind of blew up late last year. When I joined Adam, it was actually a space no one was really interested in. Obviously, in the US, they have their local challenger stockbroker. But here in the UK, that just wasn't a thing. So we reached out to journalists, and they just were not really interested. And we had a couple of articles and whatnot, but it wasn't really a thing. And then slowly, companies figured out that stockbroking is actually a really interesting space to be in.
Yeah.
I love challenger banks. I'm a full-time challenger bank customer myself. Fully migrated. My salary goes there. But current account is a very different game. You don't really make money on current account, by definition. Whereas stockbroking is a space with serious money. You can actually make really meaningful revenues and profits So I think companies figured out eventually, and there is a land grab going on now, not just in the UK, but in Europe as well. And you have to be constantly ahead of the game. So you have to deeply understand your space and your product as well. So you cannot be kind of like a like a professional CMO in the sense of, you float between companies, and once you are at a FMCG, then you go somewhere else. Yeah. You have to deeply understand the product and what the community wants. There is the incumbent industry, which operates very differently. Their customer acquisition costs are gigantic. Their play is they typically target people that are a lot older than our audience, typically 50-year-old individuals getting close to retirement, and they kind of help them invest their wealth and all that stuff. Our audience is millennials, so everybody under 40. The average age of our customers is 30. They are really switched on. So from the marketing perspective, it's a very different game. You have to earn media quite a lot. You have to be authentic, and you have to create trust. You cannot just simply buy it. So paid advertisement is not really our mainstay. We've started doing a little bit of digital advertising, but it's not really what we focus on. What we focus on is getting the word out. Yeah. We are in a really interesting market because most people in Europe, most of millennials, they actually don't invest. They should. They don't understand right now how much money you stand to make, and that you actually have to invest to increase your wealth.
Well, you're up against, like, you see this more than others, because like our generation and millennials are of that era that like don't really trust the financial markets. Exactly. So you're up against that because of everything that's obviously happened with the recession and the banks getting the bad names and all. So how do you challenge? How do you get around that challenge, I should say?
Yeah, what you said is bang on. So basically we've talked, I mean, we ourselves are in the target market, Adam and myself, but we also talk with community members a lot. Ever since we crowdfunded in 2016 first, crowdfunded every year, we actually took the time and effort to talk with every individual who invested over a certain amount, and we had meetups for everyone else, and we talked with as many people as we could. And there is this kind of like mindset shift where before 2008 you are in the financial industry, you wear a suit, you are like respectable. After 2008 you are a crook. So that gigantic mindset change happened, took place, and now the name of the game is trust, building trust, and technology as well. But you can't apply technology in isolation. You can't have like solutions looking for a problem. So what we found worked for us. We leaned into the regulations. So we invested into becoming regulated and authorized by the FCA in 2017, way before we even launched the product, a year before we launched the product. And we became members of the London Stock Exchange as well. So it gives like a foundation of trust, and we built really good technology on top of that. So we started kind of secretly building our own brokerage platform. So when you are a stockbroker, a stockbroking company, typically a lot of players in the industry use third-party software that does the heavy lifting, execution, settlement, all that sort of stuff. We decided to build our own because the technology in this industry, the financial services industry, is 30 years old, typically very, very old sort of technologies. So we actually built on top of Google Cloud and with serverless architecture to scale to millions of customers. So telling the story of that and telling the story of how we lean into regulations and creating trust and basically building the product with the community for the community, that's what really worked for us.
Is there a mindset change among people talking about what they invest in? Because I remember talking to people a couple of years ago, it's not even that long ago, and people might be a bit cagey about their investments and where they put their money in. You might put your money in gold, but I'm not going to tell anyone where I put my money. It's none of their business. Now with FreeTrade, I see people saying my top trades last month was Uber. I made 14% in Uber, and they're tweeting what they're making. Maybe not the monetary value, but they're saying I made 14% on this, I made 9% on this, and there's this sort of competitiveness among millennials. They're like, I'm good at this trading thing.
But it's different now, though, isn't it? Like, you didn't have this opportunity.
Exactly,
to do it like 10 years ago, 5 years ago.
It's very democratized now, thanks to products like FreeTrade. So I think it became really social, back to your point. So people like sharing what they invest in, and most people, they are very careful with their money, and they socialize their ideas also to kind of like cross-check with their peers and kind of like discuss investments together. And what we see in our forum as well, and in meetups, there are opposing viewpoints, is is Tesla overvalued or not. They discuss this and they have a civilized discussion about it. I think that's really the beauty of this generation. It's very fluent online, and they can have like very good debates.
Yeah, I think it's quite cool because people can debate online all day, right?
Yeah.
I think Uber's this, I think Tesla's that, I think it's Volkswagen, whatever it might be, right? But if you put your money where your mouth is, that's a different thing. You know, I believe in Tesla enough that I'm going to put my own money there.
Especially with it being like you can actually trade now with such little values.
Exactly.
You know, like it's
They're
not.
pounds.
Yeah, like so it's
Even
not
£1
like
pound.
it's not breaking the bank stuff anymore.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
so everyone can get involved in trading, and they should, because you should be doing something with your money. Like a lot of people aren't even saving. You know, but you need to start somewhere, and being able to, as you said, like have a conversation online, as long as you're having it with the right people that you can trust. Like, what should I do with my money? Where should I put it? Like, are these overvalued? Are they undervalued?
Yeah, exactly, and yeah, it's really beautiful to see these discussions, and it's not just like crazy stuff or tech stuff or kind of like hyped stuff. We see our community having discussions about like mining companies. I personally learned a lot about those companies, and what we see most people do, most of our users anyway, they invest in ETFs first. You know, that's less volatile, you know, diversified across lots of companies. But once they do that, they kind of take a punt or an investment on a company they believe in. And it's very different how older generations invest, because we just looked at our data and we saw a skyrocketing investment in climate change fighting companies.
Oh, really?
So if you consider companies like Tesla is a good example, it's a very visible example, but there are other companies that work on sustainable, renewable energy, like hydrogen power or stuff like that. They are very often in our top 10, and we saw like a 32-fold increase in investing in those stocks. One of the top ones was renewables infrastructure. It's a trust that invests in wind power and solar power.
Wow.
So yeah,
So you're just
that's very
following
interesting.
trends. You're following you're following trends in the market, which is interesting. What is, you know, obviously just entrepreneurs, our audience, 30, 40,000 are watching this show, and they make a bit of money and they save a bit of money, but they should really be investing it. Is that something you're going after, is kind of encouraging entrepreneurs when you are successful to diversify, to invest through free trade?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, we all love the mythology of like Elon Musk putting all his money in SpaceX and then, you know, not having money for rent. That's a romantic notion. I think in real life, as entrepreneurs, we kind of have to walk kind of like a fine balance between like, you know, being full on and giving your all to your venture. But at the same time, you also have to look after your financial health as much as your mental health.
Yeah, of course.
And for that, I encourage everyone to start investing and don't go all in, you know, put in like 50 quid or something, you know, just...
All on back.
Yeah, definitely not. Yeah, and, you know, just learn about it and try to create a healthy financial life, because that's going to give you a peace of mind that you're building up something as opposed to always being on the edge of going bankrupt. That's not a great mind space to be in.
Well, look, thank you so much for getting in the startup van. We could talk to you all day.
You actually could.
And it's a very interesting story, but thank you so much for getting in the van.
Cheers,
Sure,
Victor.
yeah, thanks for having me.
Enjoyed the video? Like to see more? Subscribe below.